Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Monday. So, yeah, I have been covering all kinds of movies that I've been buying. I'm actually going up to Bangor tomorrow, so I will probably buy a couple other movies. And so it's been great. I usually average about, you know, one movie a night. Sometimes I watch a few, depending on the day. On days, certain days, if I've had like maybe a really big weekend and or a busy weekend, there might be say a Saturday or a Sunday where I'm pretty much tapped out, and what I'll do is I'll vegetate and just basically sit on my butt and watch a bunch of movies. Sometimes I'll watch three movies. Yesterday I watched a couple of movies, and so it was great for me. But on average I usually watch one movie a night, just because for me it's always like kind of the best way to kind of unwind at the end of the day. Whether it's been a pretty busy day, or maybe it's been a great day, or it's been a not so great day. It's just I don't know. It's like it's entertaining, but it's the entertainment value, but it's kind of like therapy. And on average times or days, that's kind of just where my head is usually at, and that's typically what I end up doing for the most part. So I usually lately it's been watching a lot of the movies I've been buying, because I went in a big haul, and I realized it's easy to get sidetracked. So what I'm trying to actually do this time, it doesn't. I always say it, but then I end up not always doing it. But I end up getting quite a few movies, and then I put them on the side because I'm in the mood for say this or that, which is a normal thing. And so I'll watch something, and it will tend to be something I've seen before. But for the sake of the show, and just for since I collect movies, I sometimes purposely will have a stack of movies that I've had, and I'm like, okay, I want to check out all these movies, and so that's kind of what I've been doing now. And I watched a movie that is just I was just well, the only way I can say, or the only way I can describe it was I was just completely enamored with it and just blown away, and that is Dario Argento's Deep Red. This movie is just so amazing in every conceivable way. It was funny because I I just bought this a couple of weeks ago on one of my last trips to Bangor. I was up in Bangor a few weeks ago, and I got it up there. They they had I didn't have a whole lot of time. I remember, yeah, I was kind of on a limited time frame as far as when I could be there, and so I made the best of it, and I saw Deep Red there, and that is, Dario Argento, of course, is one of the greatest Italian directors. This movie came out in 1976, which is just insane, jaw dropping. How there's nothing dated in the wrong sense of the word watching this movie. Um, it feels like it came out today. It's such a masterpiece, and of course Dario Argento, one of the most iconic, probably when it comes to Italian horror or European horror, but especially Italian horror. You know, in the world of horror and exploitation, there are so many amazing directors. Jess Franco, Bruno Mattei, Lucio Fulci. The list is endless. Herschel Gordon Lewis. All including all kinds of amazing directors, not just actually Herschel Gordon Lewis being American, but there's so many great directors in the world of exploitation, and so but I would say it's safe to say, I think, in the world of horror, especially when it comes to Italian horror, Dario Argento is probably the most popular, probably the most well known, and his most popular film is easily Suspiria. I was just talking about. I ran into an old friend last weekend or the week before last, and he is also very much into horror, which I didn't really know because I hadn't seen him in years. And we were talking about Italian horror, and we were talking about. He had asked me if I had seen the remake of Suspiria. I guess that came out a couple of years back, and I keep hearing it's really really awesome, but I have not seen it, and it's I think it was a Netflix original, starring, I believe, Mia Goth, and I'm huge. Mia Goth is pretty much my favorite actress right now, and so I haven't seen it. And my friend Caleb, who I was talking to about it, loves horror films, loves Italian horror and slasher movies, all the best shit. So he was saying that this was really really great. So I definitely definitely need to see it. So it's a matter of time. It's tricky because of you know the streaming the streaming consequences are always tough. Um, there's always a delay, and there's a lot of content or movies that are original productions or even television shows don't really get to see the light of day as far as getting a physical release, and it's a wicked pain in the butt if you're a collector. And I don't stream, so a lot of the times it's a big deal as far as waiting. But um, Deep Red is a movie that I don't know. I watched some of the trailers, and I thought I probably did see it when I was a kid. There's certain things about it that had that I was like, at times when I was watching it, I watched it last night, and there were a couple times last night where I was like, I think I probably did see this when I was a kid, but I could be wrong, but I probably did because I did watch a whole. That's when, of course, when I was a kid, that's when I got exposed to all kinds of amazing horror films, and there were when I was a kid. Obviously, I'm a product of the '80s and the VHS time when you could, when you. I remember being a kid going to the video store or video shop, and I'd go in there with my parents, and the first section I would go to, I would just go immediately to the horror section. It was either that or the action section where I would like scope out all the horror movies, or I was also really obsessed with all of the really amazing ninja movies that were coming out then, and so I would go and seek those areas out and scope them down. And also, back when cable was a thing, regular with TV, there were, as a kid, they would, a lot of the times on the weekends, they would show late night, kind of like movie marathons where they would have, four or five movies at a time that they would show. And, it would start like at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, and it would go most of the night, and they would show all of these great classic, horror movies. And a lot of these shows were, midnight showings. Elvira was one, and a lot of them would show a lot of American horror, and they mostly show a lot of the exploitation horror movies. But they'd show lots of Italian movies, and I remember, that's how I got really into, Bruno Mattei or Lucio Fulci, and so, that was my exposure. And then after that, I would, go and rent the movies, find them, and always being enamored as a kid, looking at the artwork. And so I was like, there was a level of there were certain moments in watching Deep Red where I was like, I think I've seen this movie, but then I don't know. It's been so long. It was literally like watching it for the first time, but truly amazing. And this edition is just it's jaw dropping. This was put out by Arrow. This is I have one thing I've been trying to do is to get two directors that I've been trying to seek out. I've been trying to get all of the movies by Lucio Fulci, who is my favorite Italian director of all time. There's so many great movies. Mario Bava's another one. Another. There's so many great movies. So many great directors. I've been discovering so many great directors recently, as far as American directors, Andy Milligan. But when it comes to Italian horror, Lucio Fulci is my favorite. And of course, Dario Argento is a master. He's actually still alive, making movies. I believe he put out a new movie fairly recently. Still active, and it's wild. But you know, Suspiria being his most popular movie, but with being a collector, I've been trying to over time buy all of the Lucio Fulci movies. There's so many. And also the same with Dario Argento. I've been wanting to really beef up all of those classic movies that by both of those, Italian gods in the world of horror. So, and this was put out by Arrow, and this is like just an amazing addition. The transfer of this on Blu-ray is jaw dropping. Literally, it's unbelievable. It's one of the most, if not the most, well, I keep, again, before I bought this, the last few years, I've been hearing a lot about this movie. A lot of guys that I watch, guys and girls that I watch in the YouTube universe, well, especially when it comes to in the world of horror and exploitation cinema, one of the movies I've kept hearing about is Deep Red, and so I didn't think initially I'd seen it, and I'm still on the fence if I had or have seen it, but it was literally like watching it for the first time. I've often described when you watch a movie on Blu-ray, whether it's a movie you've seen you're seeing for the very first time, or maybe you've seen it say a dozen times. If you get a really good edition of that particular movie, it literally is like watching it for the first time, and it was just a spectacular experience. And I watched it last night, and so, but Deep Red was a movie I kept hearing about, and when it comes to movies, it's a horror movie, but it's definitely like a definitive moment for the Italian style of filmmaking known as giallo. Giallo is, it's funny, I wasn't aware of the term. I learned about the term of giallo just only a few years back. And I have, as a kid, I did see a lot of these giallo films, but I never really thought or knew of, the term giallo until obviously a few years back. But I had seen a lot of these Italian movies growing up, and in my time of watching some YouTube people and really good, really knowledgeable people, I've often heard this movie being referred to as like, one of the definitive moments in the giallo style, if not the definitive moment. And it's just amazing. And what giallo really is, and I've talked a lot about giallo films, and I have a lot of giallo films in my collection. I've really gotten into Jess Franco, and there's a ton of giallo films in his collection alone. So many great, Sergio Martino's another just amazing director in the genre. But so I've covered lots of giallo films, and typically what a giallo film is, or what giallo is basically, the Italian version of like the classic kind of English Agatha Christie murder murder mystery story, where basically there's giallos are essentially these like murder mystery movies. There's a lot of suspense, a lot of, I would say, the Italians took a lot of influence from Alfred Hitchcock, and also the classic, like Sherlock Holmes stories, all of the classic Agatha Christie stories, the short stories and the long stories, the long forms, and so took that and combined it in this very unique kind of art form. And giallo films are typically very low budget, but they have this very European look to them. There's like amazing. The cinematography is always breathtaking, beautiful lighting, which is another trope of the Italian cinema, especially Dario Argento. Amazing lighting and a lot of long shots, a lot of panning shots, lots of suspense. There's always a killer in the film that typically wears leather gloves, and they're usually the way that they kill people is either with like a razor, a straight razor, or a blade. That's a typical trope. And you don't know who the killer is until the very end of the film. And there's always a investigative element to the story. There's either the police are involved, or some of the lead characters are on this, in this deep detective um, mode to figure out who the killer is. There's dream sequences. A lot of the giallo films are very violent and gory, very dark, and there's always like an element of sleaze to them, um, and so and they're pretty serious. But there's the main, I'd say, trope of a lot of these films, and especially this movie, is the level of suspense, and it has, you know, there's a lot of levity because the film, especially with Deep Red, is that there's brutal kills in this movie, but there's areas of where there's a lot of quiet time and where things are kind of slow for a while, where the story kind of slowly is being unpacked for you, and but it builds so much tension, and it's amazing. Like there's a nice contrast, from where there are moments, like I said, of extreme violence, but you're not being bombarded with it. There's no, you're never being assaulted. There's a balance factor. Sometimes with like newer films, there is this sense of where they can be kind of overwhelming, of where there isn't any downtime, there isn't any space in between, say, the maybe more violent aspects of the film. There's a lot of attention, especially within Deep Red. There's a lot of attention to detail. There's great character development. The cinematography for Deep Red is just breathtaking. There's a few scenes in this film that involve these dolls that is just unbelievable, and so masterfully done. And because it's the European sense, I think, and there's also this, like, the sense when I mention like this European sense, where I feel they, as a director, and in this case Dario Argento, there's a trait that I see, or not a certain method that I see in a lot of Italian directors and European directors that's very different from American directors, is that there there's a they have they give a lot of time to pacing and letting things slow down a little bit and simmer, but yet they still have your attention. You're still, you know really invested in the film. And they allow levity. They allow things to kind of slow down, like a roller coaster ride. So when you have a little bit of that space, but in between those incredibly intense moments, it makes, when you obviously when you get to those moments of intense violence or just pure intensity, it is even more thrilling. And there, and I feel like there's a level of like a lot of love and care, especially with what Dario Argento did with this film. But there's a sense of patience where he, it's okay to exhale and kind of like let's have some downtime because the movie is very dark and there's a lot of tension and the kills are super extreme in this movie. Yeah, they're brutal, but he's Dario Argento's a director. Like he has a certain sensitivity where he's it's okay to like back off a little bit and let things cool down to a simmer and let it cook and boil for a while and then bring you back in, bring raise turn up the heat slowly. And that's the master for me. It's like that's the master craft, the genius of Dario Argento and a lot of these great Italian directors is just how they're able to keep your attention the entire time. Just breathtaking. And again, I've had this movie for a couple weeks, and finally sat down and watched it, and I was just blown away by it. Just it's a masterpiece. And there's also a lot of special features on here. Um, like pretty extensive. And so for me, buying a lot of these Blu-rays, that for me a lot of the time is a major selling point because I'm a big audiophile guy. I'm a big collector. I'm a super nerd. I love when I get into a movie. I love finding out what that process was. What was the some of the concepts put into the what helped them, the filmmakers or the filmmaker, what helped them kind of what inspired them to kind of develop this concept for this movie. What went into it and the history of the movie. I love that aspect of special features so much. And a lot of the times when I buy a movie, if the movie has a shit ton of special features, for me that will be often a deciding factor to actually buy the movie. And most of the Italian movies that I own now, and I have a fairly big collection now of Italian horror exploitation movies, most of them have just an incredible amount of special features. And this is like without the exception, this is one of the best ones. I just finished watching it last night, and then I just started the special features, and there's all these amazing documentaries, which I'm going to finish tonight, about the Giallo art form. And so, it doesn't get any better than that. And I often see that there's a lot of love and care put into a lot of these releases for a lot of the classic Italian movies where most of the time they are just packed with special features. And this is one of the biggest collections of special features that I have come across in recent time. This is just an amazing addition to my collection. If you've never seen this movie, highly recommend it. It is just so incredible. It's one, and I have to say, like I've become a big, I'd seen a lot of these giallo films growing up, but didn't know the context of what that meant. But since I've gotten really into collecting movies the last few years, particularly Blu-rays, I've learned a lot about the giallo style or art form, and this really is, I think, a defining moment. The other giallo film that I feel that really stands out as like a pivotal moment or like an iconic moment in the style of giallo is Torso by Sergio Martino. But so many great movies in the genre, and yeah, can't go wrong. But 1975, Deep Red, Dario Argento, what a masterpiece! I can't recommend this movie enough. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.